I'm here at Lake Atitlan in Guatemala, and I want to tell you about something that really means something to me. I've always been too blunt, too direct, and too sharp around the edges. Sometimes even for Danish culture, which is already pretty blunt by most standards, at least the circles I moved in. And for a long time, I thought that meant I was telling the truth, when in reality, I often wasn't telling it at all. What I was doing looked like honesty from the outside, but it wasn't rooted in self-knowledge, and it definitely wasn't rooted in care. It was rawness without clarity, directness without discernment, and words moving faster than understanding. And sometimes I like being like that. The real issue, though, wasn't that I spoke plainly, but that I didn't actually know what my truth was. I hadn't done enough personal work to feel myself clearly, to distinguish between reaction and truth, between old survival patterns and present reality, and also between what belonged to me and what I had learned to carry for other people. And layered on top of that was something even more formative. I had been groomed slowly and very effectively by my father to assume responsibility for other people's emotions. You know what that's like? Is that something you recognize? I could anticipate them. I could manage them. I wanted to manage them. I wanted to smooth edges before they could even be felt. I wanted to believe that if someone felt uncomfortable, that was my responsibility. If they felt hurt, defensive, or unsettled, that was somehow my job to fix. Yeah, it was like that for many, many years. So I learned to speak, but not to own. Learning to speak the truth, well, my truth, and actually stand behind my own words. That changed my life. It didn't arrive as a bold declaration or a personality shift. It arrived through discomfort. It arrived through hesitation. And it arrived through moments where I spoke differently than I had before. And I felt my whole nervous system light up in alarm. It felt so scary. And it cost me some relationships. It forced me to sit with silence instead of filling it. And it removed the familiar relief of explaining myself into safety. Do you over-explain? Share in the comments. And still, it gave me an easier life. Not easier in the sense of fewer challenges. No. But easier in the body. Easier in my nervous system, and easier in the daily friction of being with other people. Things became simpler because I stopped negotiating with myself before every sentence. And then, when I turned 50, something crystallized with startling clarity. Not speaking my truth was a waste of time. And worse than that, it was a waste of life. Suddenly, there was no patience left for half-truth, polite distortions, or conversations that required me to disappear slightly, even slightly, in order to belong. Time stopped feeling theoretical. It felt real and finite. I became unwilling to spend it managing impressions instead of living in alignment. That is so important for me. At the same time, another realization came in, and this part matters just as much. Truth without discernment isn't always wisdom. I understood that speaking my truth didn't mean saying everything I noticed, everything I felt, or everything I thought. It meant knowing that was mine, what was mine to say, and what was unnecessary for the other person to carry. Now, I won't lie, but I also won't say things that would be cruel or unnecessary. For example, I don't need to tell someone I find them unattractive if there's no invitation for that information. Even if it is my truth, it's not the truth about the person, and it serves no purpose except to unload something onto another person or a good friend, which would be gossip, and I don't like that. Also, I don't need to tell a friend every unfiltered thought I have about their choices, their partner, their body, or their life, unless they ask for honesty, and I'm prepared to speak with care rather than superiority, because who am I to know what the truth is about their life? I don't need to announce that I'm bored, irritated, or unimpressed when that's actually happening, when what's actually happening is that I'm tired or overstimulated or no longer aligned with the situation. Those are signals for me to respond to, not weapons to use. And I don't need to speak the truth prematurely, before it has settled, before it has been metabolized, before I know whether it is a wound speaking or something real asking to be named. Listen to the bird song, it's amazing. That to me is kindness. And how do you feel about that? Kindness isn't lying. It isn't performing niceness, and it certainly isn't self-erasure. Kindness is restraint in the service of clarity, okay? It's refusing to use honesty as a way to feel powerful or superior or relieved at someone else's expense. And I've done that quite a lot. Some people preferred the old version of me because it was familiar, because they knew how to navigate it, because it kept the roles intact, even if the roles were limiting for both of us. And when I stopped playing those roles, the system changed. Some relationships adjusted, some ended, some became quieter. None of that was easy for me. What changed most was how I related to me. Now, when something tightens in my chest or spikes in my body, I don't rush to speak. I don't force silence either. I turn towards myself with curiosity and self-compassion, and I ask me, what has been touched? What feels unsafe? What's up for me? What needs a little bit of care here? And if nothing truly needs to be said, I stay quiet without resentment, because I've taken responsibility for myself instead of outsourcing it. If the answer is yes, something truly needs to be spoken, I say it clearly and without apology, not because I expect it to land softly, but because I'm no longer willing to abandon myself to preserve someone else's comfort. This way of living didn't make me softer or harder. It just made me truer. My husband literally calls me the truth teller. And this taught me that honesty isn't something you perform outwardly. It's something I practice inwardly first, by listening to me, by slowing down, and by refusing to confuse reaction with truth, because they're not the same. The older I get, the less interested I am in being impressive or convincing or agreeable, for that matter. And the more committed I am to being aligned and choosing situations and people that are aligned. Life is too short to spend it explaining myself into shapes that no longer fit. So I choose my words carefully. I choose my silences deliberately. And I take responsibility for my inner life instead of handing it to the people around me. Well, most of the time. I'm not perfect. So if you're listening to this and something in you feels tight or relieved or quietly recognized, I want you to know that it isn't about becoming more honest overnight or saying the hard thing just to prove you can say it. It's about getting close enough to yourself, that you can tell the difference between a truth that needs air and a reaction that needs care. That sounded pretty good, didn't it? It's about realizing that you don't owe everyone your inner life, and you don't owe anyone your silence either. And maybe the real question here isn't whether you're honest enough. Maybe it's whether you're living in a way that lets you hear yourself clearly. If that question stays with you after this video ends, then let it. That's usually how something real begins. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your interaction. And I'll see you soon again.